He turned down more money than most of us will see in 10 lifetimes. He walked away from the team that made him a legend twice over. And at 41 years old, with more championships and more records than almost anyone who has ever touched a basketball, LeBron James did something nobody expected. He bet everything on Philadelphia. This is the story of how the king left Los Angeles, and why the man who reported it, Shams Charania, looked into a camera and said LeBron finally put his money where his mouth is. Let's set the scene, because to really understand how big this moment was, you have to understand exactly where LeBron James stood before any of this happened. By the summer of 2026, LeBron wasn't just an aging star trying to squeeze out a few more paychecks. He was still, somehow, one of the best players on the floor every single night. During the 2025-26 season with the Los Angeles Lakers, at an age when most players have long since retired to broadcast booths or coaching staffs, LeBron was still averaging close to 21 points a game, still grabbing rebounds, still setting up teammates with that same court vision that made him famous as a teenager. He appeared in 60 games that season. He shot over 50% from the field. He was still, by almost any measure, an elite basketball player, at 41 years old, in a league built for young legs and explosive athletes half his age. And yet, something was different. After the Lakers season ended, LeBron stood in front of reporters at a press conference, and he said something that sent a jolt through the entire basketball world. He said he needed to look at himself honestly, and decide whether he still loved this game enough to keep playing it. Think about that for a second. This is a man who had already accomplished basically everything a basketball player could ever dream of accomplishing. 4 championships. 4 MVP awards. More total points than anyone who has ever played the sport. 22 straight All-Star selections. A legacy so massive that entire documentaries have been built around just single seasons of his career. And here he was, in the summer of 2026, sitting in front of a room full of cameras, openly wondering if it was finally time to walk away. On June 30th, LeBron made his decision public. He was declining his player option with the Lakers. For a moment, nobody knew what that actually meant. Was this a business move, positioning himself for a bigger contract somewhere else? Or was this the first quiet step toward retirement, a chance to leave on his own terms instead of fading out on someone else's schedule? The uncertainty hung over the entire NBA offseason like a fog that refused to lift. Because here's the thing about LeBron James. Every single decision he makes gets treated like a national event. When he chose to leave Cleveland for Miami back in 2010, an entire television special was built around the announcement. When he later left Miami to go back home to Cleveland, it reshaped the balance of power in the Eastern Conference overnight. Every version of LeBron's free agency has carried this same electric, nervous energy, like the whole league is holding its breath, waiting to see which direction the axis of the sport is about to tilt. This time was no different, except now there was a real question mark hanging over the whole thing that had never really existed before. Would he even keep playing at all? According to reports at the time, LeBron made something very clear from the very beginning of this process. This wasn't going to be about money. He had already made nearly $53 million in his final season with the Lakers. Whatever decision came next wasn't going to be driven by another giant paycheck. It was going to be driven by something much harder to quantify. Happiness. The chance to compete. The chance to actually win one more championship before he walked away from the game for good. That's an incredibly bold thing to declare publicly, especially when you're the one everyone is watching. Because once you say something like that out loud, once you tell the entire basketball world that this decision isn't about the money, you've basically written yourself a contract with your own words. Eventually, you have to prove it. Eventually, everyone is going to be watching to see if you actually follow through, or if it was just something nice to say before quietly signing wherever the biggest check happened to be waiting. So the recruiting process began. And it wasn't quiet. According to ESPN's senior NBA insider Shams Charania, teams got creative in trying to reach LeBron. Since direct communication with a free agent has to run through proper channels, franchises interested in signing him started sending voice messages, personal pitches recorded by owners, team presidents, and general managers, all funneled through LeBron's longtime agent and business partner, Rich Paul. Picture that for a second. Some of the most powerful executives in professional basketball, recording heartfelt audio pitches on their phones, hoping their voice, their vision, their promise of a championship future, would be the one that finally landed. Charania reported that LeBron wasn't rushing any of this. There was no artificial deadline pushing him toward a quick decision. He was taking his time, weighing every option carefully, the way you'd expect someone approaching what might be the final chapter of an all-time great career to behave. This wasn't a snap decision made over a single phone call. This was a process, stretched out over weeks, filled with speculation, rumors, and a rotating cast of teams believed to be in the mix. Names being thrown around read like a highlight reel of possible storylines. The Cleveland Cavaliers, the team where it all began for him, the team he had already returned to once before in one of the most dramatic homecomings in sports history. The Miami Heat, the franchise where he won his first 2 championships, the place where he truly became LeBron James the superstar, rather than just LeBron James the phenom. The Golden State Warriors, a franchise with championship pedigree and a roster that could theoretically make room for one more legendary name. The Minnesota Timberwolves, a rising team looking for the missing piece that could push them over the top. And then there was Philadelphia. Here's the twist in the story, the part that turned this entire saga from an interesting off-season subplot into one of the most stunning storylines in recent NBA history. For most of the process, the Philadelphia 76ers weren't seriously considered to be in the running at all. They were a team built around former MVP Joel Embiid, but their roster had holes, question marks, and a recent history marked as much by playoff disappointment as by contention. And then everything changed in an instant. The Sixers pulled off a trade that shocked the entire league. Philadelphia acquired Jaylen Brown, a Finals MVP and 5-time NBA All-Star, sending Paul George, 2 future first-round draft picks, and 2 second-round picks the other direction to the Boston Celtics. Overnight, the conversation around the 76ers completely transformed. This wasn't just a team hoping to sneak into playoff contention anymore. This was suddenly a roster that had genuine championship pieces, an all-NBA level backcourt talent in Tyrese Maxey, an exciting young rookie in VJ Edgecombe, and now a certified superstar wing in Jaylen Brown, all surrounding the former league MVP still anchoring the frontcourt in Joel Embiid. According to Charania, that single trade is what put Philadelphia on the map for LeBron in the first place. Before that move, the Sixers weren't seriously part of the conversation. After it, LeBron looked at that roster, compared it to what Cleveland could offer, compared it to what Miami could offer, and started to see something the others simply couldn't match. A real, immediate chance at title contention. But basketball decisions like this are never just about basketball. Not for a man with LeBron's history, and certainly not for a man with LeBron's family. One of the final hurdles standing between LeBron and any decision at all wasn't about roster construction or championship odds. It was about home. Charania later revealed that getting his family fully on board with a cross-country move was one of the very last pieces to fall into place. His wife, Savannah. His young daughter, Juri. His 2 sons, Bronny and Bryce, both of whom have their own basketball careers and their own lives built around the West Coast. Moving an entire family across the country, uprooting years of established routines, schools, and support systems, isn't something you casually decide over a weekend, no matter how enticing the championship odds look on paper. There were even practical questions floated during the process, almost logistical in nature. Could the family find a way to commute between coasts? Could a home base remain somewhere familiar while LeBron built a new chapter in Philadelphia? In the end, according to reporting at the time, the family fully signed off on the move east, giving LeBron the comfort and stability he needed to make the leap with total peace of mind. Now imagine the moment everything finally came together. Weeks of speculation. Voice notes recorded and sent across the league. Billion-dollar franchises quietly praying their pitch would be the one. A family conversation happening behind closed doors that would ultimately reshape the entire landscape of the Eastern Conference. And then, on a Friday in late July of 2026, the wait finally ended. Rich Paul, LeBron's longtime agent and the CEO of Clutch Sports Group, delivered the news to ESPN's Shams Charania. LeBron James was signing with the Philadelphia 76ers. Not on some enormous, market-shattering contract befitting a four-time MVP. On a 2-year deal worth roughly $8 million, with a player option for the second season. The veteran's minimum. The absolute baseline salary the league allows for a player with his experience. Let that sink in for a moment. This is a man who made nearly $53 million the year before. And he chose to sign for a fraction of that, walking away from tens of millions of guaranteed dollars. Also, he could put himself in what he believed was the best possible position to win one more championship before his career finally comes to a close. That's the moment Shams Charania was reacting to when he said the words that would end up defining this entire story. Speaking on ESPN SportsCenter, Charania explained that LeBron had made it clear from the very start of this process that this decision was never going to be about money. It was about happiness, about chasing one more real shot at a title, about finding an environment where he genuinely believed he could still compete at the highest level. And then Charania delivered the line that would echo across sports media for days afterward. LeBron James, he said, put his money where his mouth is. It's such a simple phrase, but it carries an enormous amount of weight once you understand everything that led up to it. Athletes talk about legacy and loyalty and chasing championships all the time. It's the standard script, the thing every superstar says in every press conference during every contract negotiation. But talk is easy. Actually sacrificing tens of millions of guaranteed dollars, at the tail end of a career where every single season matters more than the last, that's an entirely different level of commitment. LeBron didn't just say he wanted to compete for a championship over collecting one final enormous paycheck. He proved it, in the specific language of a signed contract, for the entire world to see. Charania elaborated further on the reasoning, explaining that once LeBron and his team weighed everything, the Cavaliers roster, the Heat's roster, the Warriors roster, against what the Sixers had assembled, particularly after that stunning Jaylen Brown trade, Philadelphia simply offered the clearest, most realistic path to a championship. It wasn't about nostalgia, going back to Cleveland where his legend first began. It wasn't about returning to Miami, where he built the foundation of his championship resume. This decision, according to everyone close to the situation, was purely about basketball, about roster fit, about giving himself the best possible chance to add a fifth championship ring before his playing days come to an end. When LeBron finally addressed the decision himself, he did it the way he often does, directly, through his own social media account, in a series of posts that read almost like a farewell letter and a battle cry rolled into one. He explained that he had been honest during that final Lakers press conference when he said he needed real time to look inward and decide whether he still loved the game enough to keep playing it. And after those weeks of reflection, surrounded by the people closest to him, he arrived at his answer. He still loved this game. He still had more to give. He wrote about how special those final weeks of decision-making had been, spending real, unhurried time with the people he loves most, something the relentless grind of an NBA season rarely allows for. And at the end of it all, he said he believed he could help make the Philadelphia 76ers a championship team. He talked about being excited to energize an entirely new fan base, about starting this incredible journey one more time, even this late into a career that has already spanned more than 2 decades. And he closed his message with a simple, gracious thank you to the city of Los Angeles, the place that had been his basketball home for years. The reaction across the sports world was immediate and enormous. Fellow athletes weighed in. Analysts scrambled to explain what this meant for the balance of power across the entire league. Pennsylvania's governor, Josh Shapiro, even declared that Friday officially LeBron James Day across the entire state, a small but telling detail showing just how significant this moment felt, not just for basketball fans, but for an entire region hungry for something to believe in. Because here's the deeper story hiding underneath all of this. Philadelphia hasn't won an NBA championship since 1983. Since Hall of Famers Moses Malone and Julius Erving, the legendary Dr. J, lifted the trophy together as teammates. That is more than 4 decades of waiting. More than 4 decades of playoff heartbreak, of promising rosters that never quite got over the final hump, of a passionate, demanding fan base that has watched other cities celebrate titles again and again while Philadelphia kept coming up just short. If you know anything about LeBron's history, you know he has a particular talent for ending championship droughts. Back in 2016, he did exactly that for the city of Cleveland, breaking a 52-year wait without a title across any major professional sport in that city, delivering one of the most dramatic championship runs in NBA history, coming back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals to complete an improbable, unforgettable comeback. Cleveland had waited generations for a moment like that, and LeBron delivered it. Now, Philadelphia is hoping for its own version of that same story. A 4-decade drought, waiting for the same man who has already proven he can rewrite history for a starving fan base, to do it one more time, in one final act before his playing career eventually comes to a close. Of course, hope alone doesn't win championships. Reasonable questions immediately surfaced across the basketball world. LeBron is 41 years old. Joel Embiid, the centerpiece of this Philadelphia roster, has battled significant injury concerns for years, missing large chunks of multiple seasons. Can two aging, oft-injured superstars actually stay healthy enough, together, at the same time, to make a real championship run? Analysts pointed out that the two of them playing extended stretches side by side, night after night, across an entire grueling 82-game season plus playoffs, was far from guaranteed. There were also questions about fit. Basketball isn't just about stacking talented names on a roster and hoping championships simply happen. Tyrese Maxey, Jaylen Brown, Joel Embiid, and now LeBron James all need touches, all need the ball in their hands at key moments, all have their own individual strengths that need to mesh together into something greater than the sum of its parts. Rosters built around multiple established stars have collapsed under the weight of ego and unclear roles before. Philadelphia was now betting an entire season, and quite possibly LeBron's final championship window, on the hope that this specific combination of personalities and playing styles could actually come together in real time, under real playoff pressure. Analysts around the league debated it constantly in the days following the announcement. Some called it an absolute stunner, a move nobody would have predicted even a month earlier, one that instantly turned Philadelphia into a legitimate title contender out of nowhere. Others were more cautious, pointing to the very real injury risks, the very real age concerns, and the very real challenge of blending that many high-usage stars into one cohesive locker room. Regardless of how the season actually plays out, there's something undeniably compelling about the story itself, completely separate from whatever happens on the court. A 41-year-old man, already one of the most decorated athletes in the history of professional sports, with nothing left to prove to anyone, voluntarily choosing to take a massive pay cut, voluntarily choosing to uproot his entire family across the country, all for one more legitimate shot at a championship, in a city that has been waiting more than 40 years for exactly this kind of moment. Think about everything LeBron James has already accomplished by this point in his career. He is the league's all-time leading scorer. He has appeared in more All-Star games than almost anyone in NBA history. He has played meaningful, star-level basketball across 4 different decades, an almost unthinkable span of sustained excellence in a league that chews up and spits out most careers within a decade. He has already given basketball fans championship runs in Miami and in Cleveland, moments that will be replayed and celebrated for as long as the sport exists. By any reasonable measure, his legacy was already completely secure before this decision ever happened. And yet here he is, at an age when most legends are comfortably retired, choosing to bet on himself one more time, choosing to walk into a brand new city, a brand new fan base, and a roster still trying to figure out exactly who it is, all because he said he still loves this game, and he still believes he has more to give. That's the part of this story that resonates far beyond basketball itself. Because most of us, at some point in our own lives, reach a moment where we have to decide whether to keep chasing something difficult, something uncertain, even after we've already achieved more than most people ever will. It would have been completely understandable if LeBron had simply chosen comfort. Stay in Los Angeles. Collect one more enormous paycheck somewhere familiar. Ease gently into the next chapter of his life without taking on the risk of a new team, a new system, a new set of expectations from a fan base that has been burned by false hope more times than they can count. Instead, he chose the harder path. He chose uncertainty over comfort. He chose a genuine competitive challenge over a guaranteed, easy final chapter. And he did it in a way that Shams Charania captured perfectly in just a handful of words on live television. LeBron talked about wanting happiness, about wanting to compete, about caring more about winning than about one final oversized paycheck. And then, when the moment actually came to prove it, he backed every single one of those words up with real action, signing for a fraction of what he could have easily commanded elsewhere. That's what putting your money where your mouth is actually looks like, in the clearest, most literal sense possible. Now Philadelphia holds its breath, the same way Cleveland once did, the same way Miami once did before that. A city with more than 40 years of championship hunger, watching a roster reshaped almost overnight by one stunning trade and one historic free agency decision, wondering if this is finally, actually, the year everything comes together. Nobody knows yet how this story ends. Maybe LeBron James delivers one final, storybook championship, closing out an already legendary career with a fifth ring in a brand new city, breaking a 40-plus year drought the same way he once broke Cleveland's. Maybe the injuries pile up, the fit never quite clicks, and this ends up simply being a bold, admirable attempt that falls short of the ultimate goal. Either outcome is still sitting somewhere out there in the future, completely unwritten. But here's what's already true, regardless of how the season eventually plays out. At 41 years old, with nothing left to prove and every reason in the world to simply coast comfortably into retirement, LeBron James chose to bet on himself one more time. He turned down bigger paychecks. He uprooted his entire family. He walked directly into the uncertainty of a brand new team, a brand new city, and a fan base desperate for the exact kind of miracle he's already delivered once before, somewhere else, a decade earlier. Whatever happens next, that decision alone says something powerful about him. Because talk is cheap in professional sports. Everyone says they care about winning more than money. Almost nobody actually proves it, when the moment finally arrives to sign on the dotted line. LeBron James did. And that, more than any stat line, more than any highlight reel, more than any championship parade that may or may not eventually happen, is exactly what Shams Charania meant when he looked into that camera and told the entire basketball world, LeBron put his money where his mouth is. Let's go back for a moment, though, because there's another layer to this story worth sitting with, one that stretches back further than this single offseason. This wasn't actually the first time Philadelphia and LeBron James had crossed paths in the free agency conversation. Rewind all the way back to 2018, and you'll find the Sixers were already one of just two teams that managed to secure an actual meeting with LeBron's camp that summer, the other being the Los Angeles Lakers. Back then, Philadelphia was seen as an ambitious young team on the rise, still built primarily around a young Joel Embiid and a promising core trying to figure out its ceiling. LeBron chose the Lakers that summer instead, a decision that reshaped the Western Conference for years and eventually delivered him a championship in the pandemic-shortened 2020 season. But the fact that Philadelphia had even been in the conversation back then tells you this flirtation between LeBron and the Sixers wasn't some brand new idea cooked up overnight in 2026. It had been simmering in the background for the better part of a decade, occasionally resurfacing whenever LeBron's future came up in conversation. There's an almost poetic detail buried in that history, too. Years after that initial 2018 meeting, the Sixers, unable to land LeBron, eventually turned to James Harden instead, pairing him with Embiid in a superstar partnership that never quite delivered the championship breakthrough everyone hoped for. Harden's tenure in Philadelphia was defined as much by trade rumors and locker room tension as it was by playoff success, and by the time this current saga rolled around, Harden was already long gone from the roster, dealt away amid ongoing trade talks that stretched across multiple seasons. Fans who had followed the Sixers closely through all of that turbulence understood the significance immediately. Philadelphia had chased a superstar partnership with Embiid once before and watched it crumble under the weight of unmet expectations. Now, nearly a decade after first meeting with LeBron's camp, they had finally landed him, except this time it wasn't a younger version of Embiid at his physical peak. It was a slightly older, often injured former MVP, paired with a version of LeBron James well past his own athletic prime, both of them betting that experience, timing, and a genuinely talented supporting cast could accomplish what raw star power alone had failed to deliver in years past. That context matters, because it shapes exactly why the reaction to this signing was so complicated across the basketball world. On one hand, you had genuine excitement, the sense that this roster, on paper, looked like nothing Philadelphia had assembled in over 4 decades. On the other hand, you had a very real, very grounded skepticism, born from years of watching this exact franchise chase superstar partnerships that never quite got over the finish line. Let's talk a little more about the roster itself, because understanding exactly what LeBron is walking into helps explain why he ultimately chose Philadelphia over teams with arguably deeper championship pedigrees, like Miami or Cleveland. Tyrese Maxey had already established himself as one of the league's most explosive young guards, an all-NBA level talent capable of putting up huge scoring numbers on any given night, with the kind of speed and shot-making ability that can carry an offense through difficult playoff stretches. Alongside him, VJ Edgecombe had already turned heads as one of the most promising rookies in recent memory, earning all-rookie recognition in his very first season, the kind of young talent that suggests this roster isn't just built for one single championship window, but potentially for several years of sustained contention. Then there was Jaylen Brown, freshly acquired in that stunning trade with Boston, a Finals MVP in his own right and a 5-time All-Star, someone who had already proven he could deliver in the most pressure-packed moments professional basketball has to offer. Adding a player of that caliber, especially one who had just helped lead a team to a championship not long before, instantly changed the entire ceiling of what this roster could realistically accomplish. And anchoring it all, still standing in the frontcourt despite years of injury concerns, was Joel Embiid, a former league MVP and 5-time All-NBA selection, someone whose individual talent has rarely been questioned, even when his availability has been. When healthy, Embiid remains one of the most dominant two-way big men in the entire league, capable of controlling a game on both ends of the floor in a way very few centers in NBA history ever have. Put all of that together, and you can start to understand exactly what LeBron saw when he compared this roster to what Cleveland and Miami were offering. Cleveland had a talented young core built around guards like Donovan Mitchell, exciting and promising, but arguably a year or two away from being fully championship-ready. Miami had Giannis Antetokounmpo's rival Eastern Conference presence to contend with, along with its own roster question marks following years of retooling. Philadelphia, by comparison, suddenly had a blend of proven veteran talent and rising young stars that, on paper at least, looked more complete, more balanced, and more immediately ready to compete than either of the other options. There's also something worth mentioning about the timing of all of this, because it wasn't just about roster construction. It was about a very specific, narrow championship window opening up at exactly the right moment. The Eastern Conference, heading into the 2026-27 season, looked more wide open than it had in years. The defending champions, the New York Knicks, were the team that had actually swept the 76ers out of the playoffs in the previous postseason, a fact that undoubtedly added extra motivation to this whole equation. Beating the team that had just embarrassed you in a first or second round exit, using a roster completely transformed by a blockbuster trade and a legendary free agent signing, makes for exactly the kind of storyline the NBA loves to build entire marketing campaigns around. It's worth pausing here to acknowledge the other side of this story too, the teams left standing at the altar, so to speak. The Cleveland Cavaliers, led by Donovan Mitchell, had reportedly been in serious pursuit, hoping to write yet another chapter in LeBron's already complicated relationship with the city that first made him a superstar. There were even reports suggesting LeBron had been quietly hoping his former teammate Kyrie Irving might eventually join him back in Cleveland as well, creating an unlikely reunion of two players whose earlier partnership had ended amid well-documented tension. Ultimately, those pieces never fully came together, and Cleveland was left to wonder what might have been, for what feels like the second or third time in this ongoing, decades-long saga between LeBron and his hometown franchise. The Miami Heat, meanwhile, had their own case to make. Miami has always represented a different kind of appeal for LeBron, the place where he first learned how to win at the highest level, teaming up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh to form one of the most dominant partnerships in modern NBA history. Some analysts had actually argued, in the weeks leading up to his decision, that Miami represented the most fitting, most poetic possible ending to LeBron's career, a chance to come full circle back to the city where his championship legacy truly began. In the end, though, LeBron and his camp apparently felt the roster fit simply wasn't as strong as what Philadelphia had suddenly assembled, and sentiment, however compelling, lost out to cold, hard basketball calculation. The Golden State Warriors and Minnesota Timberwolves rounded out the list of serious suitors, each offering their own version of a championship pitch, each ultimately falling short of whatever combination of roster fit, competitive timeline, and personal comfort finally tipped the scales toward Philadelphia. Now, let's think for a moment about what this all means for the city of Philadelphia specifically, beyond just the roster and the odds. Sports fandom in Philadelphia has a very particular reputation. It's a passionate, demanding fan base, one that has been characterized over the years as tough, occasionally unforgiving, but also fiercely loyal to anyone who genuinely gives everything they have on the court. This is a city that has watched heartbreak after heartbreak across multiple sports, agonizingly close playoff runs that never quite crossed the finish line, promising rosters that fell victim to injuries or bad luck or simply better teams standing in the way at exactly the wrong moment. A championship drought stretching back to 1983 isn't just a statistic. It's an entire generational wound for a fan base that takes its basketball extremely seriously. Think about everything that has happened in the world since the last time the 76ers actually won a title. Entire technologies have been invented and become obsolete. Entire generations of players have been born, developed their games, become superstars, and retired, all without Philadelphia basketball fans getting to experience the specific joy of an NBA championship parade down Broad Street. That's the weight LeBron James is walking into. Not just a talented roster with real championship upside, but an entire city's worth of accumulated hope and heartbreak, all suddenly refocused onto one veteran superstar and his surrounding cast, all wondering if this is finally, actually, the year the wait ends. It's worth remembering, too, just how rare this specific kind of moment actually is in professional sports. Superstars nearing the end of legendary careers rarely get the opportunity to walk into a genuinely complete championship roster. More often, aging stars either stay loyal to the franchise that built their legacy, riding out a slow decline together, or they bounce from contender to contender on short-term deals, chasing a ring as a role player rather than as the centerpiece of a franchise's hopes. LeBron's situation is unusual precisely because he's arriving not as a diminished role player looking for one last shot, but as a genuine difference maker, someone the Sixers clearly believe can meaningfully shift the balance of an entire conference. Whether that belief proves correct remains to be seen, of course. Basketball has a long history of super teams assembled on paper that never quite gelled the way everyone expected once actual games started being played. Chemistry, health, coaching, matchups, the sheer unpredictability of an 82-game season followed by a grueling playoff gauntlet, all of these variables can turn a supposed championship roster into a disappointing first-round exit just as easily as they can turn a scrappy underdog into an improbable champion. But for now, none of that uncertainty diminishes the significance of the decision itself. A 41-year-old man, already one of the most accomplished athletes in the history of professional sports, chose challenge over comfort, chose competition over an easy final payday, and chose to bet his own reputation and his own family's daily life on the belief that he could still help deliver something Philadelphia has been waiting more than 40 years to feel again. There's a broader lesson buried inside all of this too, one that reaches well beyond basketball. It's easy, when you've already achieved enormous success, to simply protect what you've built. To play it safe. To take the comfortable option, the bigger paycheck, the familiar surroundings, rather than risking your own legacy on something uncertain. LeBron James, at a stage in his career where absolutely nobody would have blamed him for choosing exactly that kind of comfortable, low-risk final chapter, chose instead to bet on himself one more time, in a brand new city, with a mostly new supporting cast, chasing something that is very much not guaranteed. That's a difficult thing to do at any stage of life, let alone at the tail end of a career already secured as one of the greatest in the history of an entire sport. And whether or not the championship actually arrives, whether Embiid stays healthy long enough for this specific roster to reach its ceiling, whether the chemistry between all these talented, high-usage players actually comes together under playoff pressure, the decision itself already tells you something meaningful about how LeBron James wanted to be remembered, at the very end of this remarkable, decades-long story. Not as the guy who took the safest, most comfortable path to a quiet, well-compensated retirement. But as the guy who, even at 41 years old, even after everything he had already accomplished, still wanted to compete. Still wanted to chase one more real championship. And when the moment finally came to prove it, backed it up with an actual signature on an actual contract, for a fraction of what he could have easily commanded elsewhere. Philadelphia now waits to see how the story ends. But regardless of what happens once the games actually begin, this much is already true, sitting right there in the numbers on that contract, plain and undeniable for anyone paying attention. LeBron James said this was never about the money. And then he proved it.